President Trump has just ordered a massive overhaul of America's so-called vaccine recommendations, especially for children. He has eliminated the universal recommendations for COVID and for flu and for hepatitis B vaccines for babies, also calling for major changes in the vaccine schedule. Naturally, the Democrat big pharma states are already announcing their resistance. Tonight, we're going to break it all down with the great Dr. Peter McCullough, one of the greatest medical doctors in America. Also, declassified intelligence from the United States reveals explosive information about the CIA and the Venezuelan dictatorship's efforts to interfere in elections. But according to our incredible guest, Patrick Byrne, Dr. Patrick Byrne, former CEO of Overstock.com, long background in intelligence, it's a limited hangout. It's just the tip of the iceberg. The government knows far more than they are revealing, and we are not out of the woods yet when it comes to election integrity and security. But according to the documents that they did release, the Venezuelan regime was trying to manipulate and was manipulating elections all around the world, including right here in the United States. Meanwhile, we're dealing with apparent missile shortages, even as we're potentially on the verge of even greater conflict. Folks, this is very disturbing. We have all this and much more. Also, Massachusetts apparently thinks that you ought to be able to kill your baby right up until the moment of birth. Even if you're overdue to give birth, you should be able to kill your baby. That's what lawmakers and the governor in Massachusetts think. We have all that and more. The Department of Health and Human Services just released a bombshell report showing that across the country, especially in Democrat-run states, they are castrating little children and using fraudulent insurance codes and billing codes to bilk taxpayers and insurance companies out of the money. Absolutely insane. So we have a very special lineup for you today. Dr. Peter McCullough on these developments, also Patrick Byrne, and of course the best-selling author, Dr. Chloe Carmichael, who's going to talk to us about the benefits of free speech beyond just the fact of being able to speak freely. So we have a lot for you today. Stay tuned for all that and more. This is the Sentinel Report, and I'm your host, Alex Newman. Before we get started, we're going to start with a word from the Word. This comes out of Matthew chapter 7, verses 15 through 20. The Word of God reads, "Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are ravenous wolves. You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, nor can a diseased tree bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits." It's a powerful reminder, folks. We know that there are false prophets. We know that there are those who come in the name of Jesus Christ who actually are ravenous wolves. They're false prophets. They're false teachers. And one obvious giveaway of that, you might think, is claiming you're a Christian and then signing legislation to murder babies up until the moment of birth. So we're going to get back to that in a moment. But before we do, I do want to tell you about our friends over at Retirement Renegade, folks. You know, if you watch this program, if you listen to this program for a long time, that we have been sounding the alarm about the Great Reset and the Great Taking for years, long before almost anybody else was doing it. And one of the things that I found so frustrating was just I couldn't find any financial advisors or financial people who were willing to take the time to understand this and talk about it. Well, that has finally changed. We found our friends over at Retirement Renegade, and you know what was so interesting to me? They didn't just want to learn about this and talk about it. They actually put $1 million up to produce a documentary. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But folks, you know this Great Taking. We've been talking about it for a long time. They have this legal mechanism that they've quietly put into our state statutes for a period of decades. And basically, under these changes to the Uniform Commercial Code in Article 8, your retirement savings might not be legally yours. They may not legally belong to you in the way that you think they do. And so one of the questions that we've gotten from just so many listeners, so many viewers across the country is, well, what do I do with my savings? How do I protect my wealth? And for a long time, I didn't know how to answer that. I'm not a financial advisor. What do I know? You know, just be careful. I don't know. So really, the simple answer is find somebody who knows what they're talking about. And that's why we decided to partner with our friends at Retirement Renegade. It's an independent financial fiduciary, an independent retirement fiduciary. And they're one of the few firms that I know of that is taking this seriously and is taking the time to warn their customers, their clients about this, and even to create a documentary to sound the alarm for the public. It's called The Retirement Reset. I'm going to tell you how you can watch that in just a moment. So Retirement Renegade is now offering this movie completely free to listeners and viewers of the Sentinel Report. You can watch the whole film, and then you can book a 15-minute consultation, again, absolutely free, to chat with one of their experts on what you might do to try to protect yourself from what these evildoers are planning. Obviously, there's no obligation, just honest information that your current advisor is probably not sharing with you. Actually, they might not even be aware of it themselves. That has been my experience in talking to a lot of these guys. And if they are one of the few advisors who are aware of it, they likely don't even want to tell you about it because they're worried you might pull your money out and all the fees. So I want you to start by watching this documentary, folks. Even if that's all you do, it's just a really, really good film. You can get it for free. Again, for free. If you go to retirementrenegade.com/liberty. If you're listening to us on the radio, just type that into your browser, retirementrenegade.com/liberty. If you're watching us on one of the different platforms online, check in the description below. We'll have a link there, retirementrenegade.com/liberty. And then just use that promo code Liberty when you check out, and the documentary will be absolutely free. So go watch it today, folks. Take some time to do this because you don't want to be one of the people who is surprised when the clowns come on the TV and tell you, whoops, the banks are shut. Whoops, we don't know what happened to all your securities, but they're going to be needed to recapitalize all the banks. And yes, it's all totally legal. So go check it out, folks. Not trying to scare anybody, but we do who wants you to be prudent. As Proverbs tells us, the wise man, the prudent man sees danger coming and takes cover. The fool keeps on going and pays the price. So we've got a powerful news segment for you today. As usual, joining me to discuss is the great Andrew Muller, Chief of Operations at Liberty Sentinel Media, also a contributor to the New American Magazine, where I serve as senior editor. Andrew, welcome to the program. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you, brother. Always a pleasure.
It's great to have you. And folks, before we get into the news, I do want to tell you too, we're trying to expand on radio across the country. We're already on radio across the country, but we want to get even more stations. And so to do that, you can make a tax-deductible contribution, if you would like, over at libertysentinel.org/donate. Now, Trump just signed an executive order drastically scaling back the vaccine recommendation. So we're now down to 11 recommended vaccines. He's eliminating the flu shot, the COVID shot, hepatitis B. He's also, this is fascinating, requiring vaccine makers to separate the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccines, the MMR, so-called, that has been so controversial for so long for very obvious reasons. Not only that, the administration is also working to make sure that every state has a religious exemption and a medical exemption. Believe it or not, there are a whole bunch of states, including some Republican ones, where there is not even a religious exemption. They will force you, against your religious beliefs, to inject your child with some concoction of aborted baby parts and monkey livers and viruses and who knows what else. So one of the things that Trump is trying to do here is make sure that if states deny a parent's religious rights to exempt their children from this, that the parents have recourse. So this is huge, huge development. And Trump signed the executive order just recently. And folks, out of the 72 doses of 72 different vaccines that were being recommended, they've now reduced this down through the CDC to just 11 different diseases. And as Trump said, at 1 year, you should have 5 separate visits for vaccines rather than getting them all in the same day. Dr. Peter McCullough, who has spoken out about this issue, is going to be joining us later to break all of this down. But he says vaccinations for hepatitis B, COVID-19, influenza, among others, are no longer recommended for all children, which honestly just puts us in line with a lot of other Western nations that frankly have much better outcomes for children. Andrew, what do you make of these changes? I mean, they tried to do this through ACIP, the Advisory Commission or Committee on Immunization Practices. Dr. Robert Malone, we actually had him on the program talking about that. He was the co-chair, and a wild, unconstitutional judge just like overturned it all. So I guess Trump's doing this through executive order now. What do you make of it?
Yeah, well, the first thought that comes to my mind is, why are we even having the president of the United States tell parents how many times they should take their child to the hospital? Why are we having the CDC or the FDA do that either? What should be happening is we should have products, because vaccines are products, if people like to think it or not, and they're either good or bad. And there should be organizations that test those products, and parents can make a decision with the advice and consent of their doctor, or the advice, I should say, their doctor, and they can decide if they want to give them to them or not. And if they want to give them 72, that's fine. Probably not a good idea, but fine. And if you want to give them 0, even better. But the notion that the president has to sign an executive order, and he still says, measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, polio, all these different vaccines are still recommended. And I think it's a step in the right direction, but I think that privatization of it, free market of choice, informed consent, parents making these decisions, actually being able to sue these manufacturers of these vaccines if they go awry, that is what we should be creeping towards, rather than the elites on high, even if they agree with us, like Donald Trump on some things, telling us what we can and can't do or what should be recommended. Because ultimately, what does the White House or FDA or CDC know about my kid? Nothing.
That's exactly right. And you're so right. I don't know how we got into this situation where we now turn to the government for advice on like what we should do with our children. Like pretty soon they'll be like, oh, you should put on a sweater when it's cold. Like, well, thank you, overlords. But I think I can handle that on my own. And, back during the swine flu hysteria, you were probably just like in diapers, Andrew. This was like 2009. The government started peddling this crazy swine flu hysteria. And Gary, the editor of the New American, called me and said, Alex, why don't you look into that? And so I did a big cover story. And I didn't know anything about vaccines. My firstborn son was just about to arrive. And I started doing a deep dive. And like the more I studied, the more I realized like, wow, these things aren't nearly as safe as they claim. They're not nearly as effective as they claim. In fact, I'm not even sure these things work at all. And frankly, they look pretty dangerous to me. So I am very grateful for having done that research. And I would encourage every parent and every person to spend some time on this, folks. Don't just blindly, if you still trust the medical establishment after what we just lived through with Dr. Fauci, maybe I can't help you. But switching gears here, we've got the Pentagon reportedly hiding the scale of missile shortages from the White House and from the public. This is according to insiders quoted in the media. Apparently, the president is under pressure to hit back at Iran. We've had multiple American bases attacked. We've had multiple U.S. servicemen killed. And yet apparently, the Pentagon is running out of the missiles that we need to be able to protect our country, to be able to protect our allies. This is pretty concerning to me. We don't know exactly yet how true this is, but there was an analysis by the Royal United Services Institute earlier this year that calculated that the U.S. government and its allies had burned through more than 11,000 munitions just in the first 16 days of the war, and they predicted that we were only a month away from running out of critical munitions. So, folks, this is not good. If we were to end up in a war with the communist Chinese, with the Iranians, of course, we already are at war with the Iranians, with the Russians, this could turn into a real disaster real quick. So let us hope and pray that somebody in Washington is paying attention to all of this. Now, I want to turn to something that just breaks my heart. The state of Massachusetts. I always get that confused. Massachusetts, the governor there, Maura Healey, claims to be a good Catholic. I don't know how that works, but if you're watching us, you see her here signing a bill surrounded by a bunch of women and feminists. They're all cheering and clapping. You're never going to guess what that bill does. It purports to legalize the slaughter of unborn babies literally up until the moment of birth. So Massachusetts is now one of about 10 states where you can kill your baby right before he or she comes out of the womb. It's horrifying. It's despicable. The American College of Pediatricians is strongly condemning this move. Dr. Robin Pierucci, board-certified pediatrician, neonatologist, and a board member of the American College of Pediatricians, had this to say: as pediatricians, we care for children at every stage of development, including babies born prematurely at the same gestational ages at which babies in Massachusetts may now be aborted. Folks, that is grotesque. That is disgusting. That is wicked. And frankly, I would not be surprised to see God's judgment rain down upon Massachusetts and the United States of America. It's horrifying. It's sickening. I thought the Babylon Bee hit the nail on the head, satire news site, when they announced that the state of Massachusetts had unveiled a statue of Moloch at the state capitol. Molech, if you're not familiar with Molech, was an ancient pagan Canaanite deity that demanded lots of child sacrifice. If you go back and read your Old Testament, the child sacrifice is not new. It's not unique to the United States of America. It was a hallmark of pagan societies around the world. But Andrew, this is just grotesque. I mean, it makes you sick, the idea. I mean, if you've ever seen an ultrasound of a baby, I've got 6 babies. I've seen the ultrasounds. Like, they're babies, right? Just because they haven't come out yet, they're still babies. If you've ever seen like a video of these babies being aborted, like they're literally ripping off their limbs. I mean, it's so vile. It's so disgusting. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when the Declaration of Independence said that we have a God-given right to life and the purpose of government was to protect the rights that God gave us, I mean, that's a no-brainer to me. The government needs to be protecting unborn babies. What do we do in a case like this where rogue states run by, I don't know, demons say, no, you have the right to murder your babies whenever you feel like it?
Well, I think this situation in Massachusetts is a direct consequence of the Republican Party and the GOP giving away the abortion battle nationally and federally. This was something that was unfortunately a result of the MAGA movement. Donald Trump came along and he said, you know what, abortion should be left to the states. That was the topic. And you saw the pre-2015 Republican Party platform. It was very strong that life began at conception, that abortion was wrong. And then you saw the Trump rewrite of the RNC platform, and it totally got rid of any sort of, federal policy or party stance on abortion in any significant way. And now you have this notion in GOP that, hey, we don't have to fight against abortion in Congress. We don't have to fight against it in the White House or in the Supreme Court. It's up to the states. And that sort of mentality and battle posture has resulted in congressmen, in the president of the United States, in our federal legislators conceding this ground to the left. Now they are working through the states to do these sorts of, bills. And I think what should happen, Alex, is that we should have a law, we should have a federal mandate that, you know what, hey, we do believe in limited government, we do believe in constitutionalism, but if we can't protect life, if we can't protect life that, as you said, is in the Declaration of Independence, what's even the point of having a constitution if no one can live under it because they're dead in the future? It's like, this is so simple. The federal government must have a stance on this, and I think it should be something handled at all levels, but especially nationally, because if your government can't protect life, which is a right from God, right? They don't give life, but they protect it. They can't do that. They can't do anything else. So I'm very sympathetic to heavy-handed government, policies when it comes to taxes or commerce or agriculture or what have you. But when it comes to life, this is something we should all agree on.
Yeah. And in fact, when I read the Constitution, I remember reading that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. And sorry, signing a fake piece of legislation authorizing the murder of babies is not due process of law. Those babies have not been convicted of any crime. It's sickening. I don't even know what to do with it. It's infuriating. It's terrifying. It makes you want to cry. It's just so monstrous. And yet we've got people across the country celebrating this. And folks, we need national repentance. This is absolutely sick. And I have no doubt that someday in the future, people will look back at this video of this governor and all these women signing this disgusting bill, and they'll think of them just exactly like we think of Nazis today, exactly like we think of slave owners and slave traffickers today. We'll look back and say, whoa, how could people have been such savages and barbarians to allow that? It's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. Speaking of sickening, Dr. Fauci was exposed covering up massive amounts of data showing that miscarriages after getting this COVID injection were over 80% in pregnant women who received the mRNA shot in their first trimester. Essentially, folks, these were abortion shots, abortion injections. I might even call it murder. Thankfully, the president and the administration have been releasing these text messages now from Dr. Fauci's phone. Thank you, Senator Ron Johnson, for doing that. These text messages are crazy, folks. Fauci knew that these shots were killing enormous numbers of babies, that they were causing miscarriages in pregnant women. 82% miscarriage rate in women vaccinated during the first trimester. Okay, like this was like almost 100%. It was more effective at killing your baby than it was at preventing COVID. Let's say that. And yet they kept doing it. In 2022, the VAERS data showed a 4,070% increase in miscarriages and stillbirths since the mRNA shots came out. Dr. Fauci, knowing all of this, decided that we ought to encourage all pregnant women, and by encourage, I mean practically force all pregnant women to take these death shots. Listen.
But if I were to pick out one thing that we as a nation are not doing optimally, it's the extraordinary situation where you have a highly effective vaccine that is very safe, and you have 50 million people in the country who refuse to get vaccinated, many of which are motivated purely by differences in political ideology, which is really unacceptable when you're in the middle of a deadly outbreak. If there ever was a time when you wanted the nation to focus on fighting the common enemy, and the common enemy is the virus, not ourselves, it is really extraordinary that we are having interference with public health principles for reasons that have nothing to do with public health.
Folks, he said that after he knew, and we know from his text messages, he knew he needs to be thrown in jail if Americans are feeling very generous. Now, a lot of sports players knew this, and apparently a lot of them got fake vaccines cards. Here is NFL MVP Cam Newton confirming that Aaron Rodgers was actually right. A lot of people bought fake vaccine passports to be able to dodge these crazy rules. Check it out.
If we're being honest, going back to 2020, there were multiple players, coaches, and executives that fraudulently got their COVID shot. Yes, I said it. You're like, Cam, what do you know? It's like, man, I knew multiple people in that locker room didn't get the COVID shot.
Multiple people. Here's Aaron Rodgers also confirming that.
Yeah, I mean, you've had quite a run today. If you would like to say anything about it.
No, we can go back to Fauci. Finish where we started.
Okay, on that note, you have a lot of teammates that are vaccinated. That's good heading into the season.
A lot of people had probably fake vac cards back in the day, too.
Not me.
Yeah, a lot of people had fake vax, right? And you know what? I'm normally all for obeying the government, but if the government tells you to inject a toxic concoction made with aborted babies that literally has human-created genetic instructions that cause your cells to mass manufacture toxic spike proteins, I'm all in favor of a little bit of civil disobedience. Romans 13 does not mean the government should be injecting you with toxic stuff. It means the government should be punishing evildoers, like people who manufacture toxic stuff and then try to get you to inject it while providing immunity to the killers who created the stuff. Now, this brings me to our next story. I just did a big article on this last week in the New American Magazine. So-called scientists proposing the elimination of half the world's population to achieve what they call sustainable development. Now, they want to reduce the population of the planet to about 4 billion. Now, they want to do it gently by the year 2020, but they say that the number of people we have on the planet is just not sustainable. So we got to cut the number in half, and then that half that remains, those 4 billion that remain, they're going to have to be a whole lot poorer than they are right now. And they said, really, there's no substitute for this. This was published in a major prestigious journal dedicated to advancing the UN's 2030 agenda, the Sustainable Development Goals, the Agenda 2030, the same document that these clowns called the Master Plan for Humanity. Andrew, what do you think? Do we need to reduce the population by 50%?
It's crazy. Kill the people to save the people. It's just unbelievable. That's what you got to do. But when you start to recognize that this has nothing to do about climate, has nothing to do about sustainability, it all has to do with global control, it makes complete and utter sense. These people don't want to help you. They want to hurt you. They don't want to heal you. They want to make you sick. It's like that is what's going on. It's the opposite of what they proclaim that it is. And this whole sustainability, SDG, Sustainable Development Goal scam, it sounds nice when you look into it. Oh, we want to help the poor. We want to feed the hungry. We want to heal the sick. We want to heal the planet. But the answer to those problems is giving power to an elite, depraved group of people that want to be tyrants. They want to be kings. It goes back to that Lord of the Rings mentality, right? Where you concentrate power in one area, one small element, whether that be a ring or the United Nations, and people will do unbelievable things. They'll kill, they'll rape, they'll steal, they'll lie to get that power. And that's what we're seeing here. It's virtue signaling at the nth degree to make themselves kings of this earth.
Yeah, it's disgusting. It's vile. And folks, they've been calling for this stuff for a long time. You remember Obama's science czar, John Holdren, back in 1977, he proposed in his book, Ecoscience, a planetary regime with an armed force to manage the planet. He proposed sterilizing agents in the water supply to make sure you couldn't have babies without permission from your overlords. He claimed that we could have forced abortions under the existing Constitution. So these people are completely mad, absolutely and completely mad. If I wasn't a believer in individual liberty, I'd almost say maybe they belong in an insane asylum, locked up in a padded room where they can't hurt themselves or others. Folks, this is crazy, right? This is crazy. But of course, they have a passionate, a fanatical view of man. They know that man is made in the image of God, and so therefore they hate man because they hate God. God told us to be fruitful and multiply. God told us that children are a blessing from the Lord, and so these maniacs say, no, children are bad, no more children. Go read the article I wrote on this, folks, because there's a lot of background on this. I've been going to these UN conferences for 20 years now. I've got all these guys on tape saying we got to get rid of people. We need a lot less people. It's frankly disgusting. A couple more news items here. American missionary Kevin Rideout just freed on his way home. He is a pilot with SIM International. He was kidnapped in Niger in Africa back in October. And so, folks, praise the Lord. He is now free, heading toward his family, and we are very grateful for that. Also, top official with the Soviet Poverty Law Center, they like to be called the Southern Poverty Law Center, just arrested for funneling money from donors to her neo-Nazi lover and her lover's neo-Nazi group. This lady, Heidi Beirich, I think her name is. I know her name well because every time they needed somebody to attack Alex Newman or some of the organizations that I work with, most recently they attacked Charlie Kirk and me in an article. They always went to Heidi Beirich, the director of the Intelligence Project. And so now she has been arrested for funneling over $1 million in donor money to this neo-Nazi and his little neo-Nazi group while they were living together in a house unmarried. Oh boy, terrible, terrible stuff. But glad that these people are finally being exposed. Now on the gun control front, some really good news. It looks like the National Firearms Act may be on its last legs. Thank you to gun owners of America. And also Virginia, ultimate own goal. The gun control nut spent $1 million on a firearm ban in Virginia, trying to ban AR-15s. Thank you, Mayor Michael Bloomberg. And everybody went out and bought an AR-15, and now the courts have put that law on hold. It's almost certainly going to go down in flames. And so good job, gun controllers. You just made sure that there was a lot more AR-15s in Virginia and hopefully in other places as well. We've got the primaries coming up, folks. I hope you are voting if you have not already. There's a lot of reasons to want to vote. Not necessarily a lot of great candidates, but hey, it could always be worse. Folks, we've got some very special guests coming up in just a moment, so make sure you stay tuned. And again, we're trying to get this broadcast on even more AM/FM radio stations across the country. We want to blanket the country with the Sentinel Report so that Americans can hear the real news, the news that matters, news from a biblical perspective, so that we can hopefully make better decisions about our health, about the education of our children, about our politics, and so much more. Put it all in submission to our Lord. Stay with us. We're going to be right back. You can go to our website, libertysentinel.org. If you go to libertysentinel.org/subscribe, you get the newsletter for free. If you go to libertysentinel.org/donate, you can send a tax-deductible contribution and get us on the air in even more cities across the United States. We'll be right back.
If you've been following Alex Newman's reporting on the Great Taking, you already know the laws governing your IRA and your 401k were quietly changed. What you may not know is what to do about it, specifically for your accounts. My name is Andrew Winnett. I'm a certified financial fiduciary and the founder of Retirement Renegade. I spent $1 million producing the Retirement Reset, the documentary Alex Newman appears in alongside Tucker Carlson, Ben Stein, Lauren Seidel-Baker from ITR Economics, and more. Right now, I'm offering Liberty Sentinel listeners two things completely free. First, stream the Retirement Reset. Go to retirementrenegade.com/liberty and use promo code LIBERTY at checkout. Watch the full film and see the evidence yourself. Second, once you have watched it, book a free 15-minute retirement income clarity session. I will show you specifically how your accounts are structured, where the vulnerabilities are, and what a protected retirement plan looks like for your situation. Free, no obligation. Go to retirementrenegade.com/liberty. That is retirementrenegade.com/liberty. Promo code liberty. Do it today.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, we've got so much in the world of healthcare, so-called, whether we're talking about the abortions they're doing in Massachusetts or the mutilation of children under the guise of transgender surgeries, and of course, the COVID injections, the executive order from Donald Trump. Joining us to discuss all of this and much more is my friend, Dr. Peter McCullough. He's, of course, a legend. He was one of the first to sound the alarm about the COVID and the COVID injections, came up with a marvelous treatment protocol that worked very well. Today, he is still an internist, cardiologist, one of the greatest in the world. He's also the chief medical officer at the Wellness Company. Great company. If you use the promo code Newman, you're going to get a nice discount on whatever you buy. Dr. McCullough, welcome to the program. Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Great to have you. So the HHS just released a report last week where they show that there are a bunch of hospitals, primarily in Democrat states, but it's happening nationwide, where we have doctors and institutions billing the government, billing the taxpayer to castrate little boys, to remove healthy breasts from little girls, to do what they call gender-affirming surgeries. And HHS is suggesting this is fraud, not health care. What's your take on all this?
You know, Trump was right by the executive order banning nationwide childhood gender change programs, actually banning them. So that means puberty blockers, hormones, and surgery, this mutilating surgery. It's sterilizing, disfiguring, increases the burden of psychiatric care, increases all-cause mortality. So as a doctor, I am completely on board with getting rid of all this. The shocker here is that when HHS investigated, it turns out that many of these programs were doing fraudulent billing. They were bilking the government, probably bilking private insurances too. Another reason why the whole country needs to get out of this transgender business. The majority of these children actually have autism. That's the problem. That's the genesis of gender dysphoria. They need counseling, not hormones and surgery.
Yeah, amen. And Dr. McCullough, you have been very outspoken on the issue of COVID injections. In fact, our first meeting, this was back in 2021, right as these things were being rolled out, you said, I have some concerns. There's an unusually large number of reports being made to VAERS. I think we ought to investigate this a little further. And that interview went super viral. We got, I think, 15 million views before it got taken down from everywhere.
Wow.
Now we see that a lot of this information is now part of the public record. Senator Ron Johnson has released it, Senator Rand Paul. So you have been vindicated. Fauci has been completely exposed, along with some of the others in the government who participated in this. What's your takeaway on the information that's been learned and on Fauci's, I think, very unfortunate effort to push this, even though he knew that it was hurting pregnant women, that it was causing babies to die in the womb? What's your take on everything that we know so far?
We've learned from his diary, as well as his text messages and emails, that there was a constellation of people around him. That would include Rochelle Lewinsky, Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, now Janet Woodcock, former FDA commissioner. They were either expressing concerns or saying, listen, we don't have data to do this. And Fauci pushed forward, this is very sad, pushed forward with COVID vaccination, which was grossly unsafe, but particularly deadly for pregnant women. And we've learned large numbers of women lost their babies directly after COVID-19 vaccination. And, I think all of the people I mentioned are implicated, but Fauci's the one that pushed this forward. He was the leader of this whole coronavirus task force response. And he's really, essentially, he is now being held responsible.
Yeah, so of course he famously pled the fifth to everything, but that will not necessarily insulate him from state charges. My state, the state of Florida, Attorney General James Utmeyer is criminally investigating. What are your thoughts? Do we need criminal charges in a case like this to bring about justice and accountability?
Well, Todd Blanche, the recently approved Attorney General, he said that he's looking at it right now. I think, honestly, because the government is so involved in this pandemic, I think we need a special independent counsel that's appropriate when the government has a conflict of interest Fauci needs to be a target in a probe, but I would put up everybody else out there who was making decisions and advising the public. Anybody who got out there in public and said that someone should take a COVID-19 vaccine, they should be investigated.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And Dr. McCullough, you and the great John Leake, who was on this program very recently, you guys did a book not too long ago about the vaccines and kind of the mythology around them. The president just used an executive order to really scale back the number of vaccines that the government is recommending, taking some of them out entirely, you know, the cold, the COVID, hepatitis B for babies. What are your thoughts? We reported on this in the news segment. What are your thoughts on these changes? We've already seen a lot of Democrat-run states saying they're not going to listen. They're going to continue recommending all of those within those states. But what are your thoughts on this?
You know, the administration tried to do this through the proper ACIP channels. They trimmed the vaccine schedule down to about the same as Denmark. By the way, Denmark has better control over infectious diseases than we do. And then a liberal judge overturned this in a plaintiff group that came forward led by the American College of Pediatrics. They overturned it at the beginning of this year. Now Trump, through an executive order, which is very well written, not only is bringing this schedule back to what it should be, essentially like it is in most European countries, most peer nations, but he's also bringing medical freedom and advising each state attorney general to write into law that that people should have medical and religious exemptions. In Texas, we have philosophical exemptions as well. No one should be forced into taking vaccines. If the parents don't want their children to take vaccines, they shouldn't be forced into doing it. This has largely been driven by the McCullough Foundation report on the determinants of autism spectrum disorder, where we demonstrated that in susceptible children, the largest risk factor for the development of autism is to get a big bundle of vaccines. And this all occurs before the age of 4. The children are born normal, and then they convert to a post-encephalitic autistic phenotype, we think because of the vaccines causing damage in the brain. There's too many of them given all at once. So Trump is right. Split them up, reduce the burden. I personally think going past age 4, if we can get past age 4, the vaccines become much less risky, and they should be risk stratified. A healthy child born today, in the McCullough Foundation report, healthy child born today remains healthier if they take no vaccines whatsoever.
Wow, amazing. Dr. McCullough, where do you think we are? We've only got a few minutes left. Where do you think we are in this battle between truth and science versus, say, Big Pharma and their wish list? Are we making progress now, and how much further do we have to go?
We're making progress in public awareness. And, I didn't completely understand the methodology of Rand Paul and Ron Johnson initially. Now I understand. The reason why to have the hearing with Fauci is not really to have Fauci say anything, is to expose these text messages, these emails, this corruption. Look at the response of his wife, Christine Grady, flipping off the public and the press. I mean, she's in charge of bioethics. Fauci and Christine Grady were collecting rigged cash prizes that they were having government employees apply for in Fauci's name. For all of this to come out now former CDC Director Robert Redfield said it was a mistake to vaccinate pregnant women. I can tell you from my perspective, it was a mistake to vaccinate anybody with messenger RNA coding for the deadly Wuhan spike protein, which was devised in the Chinese biosecurity lab. It was a disastrous idea, and I think we're going to be paying the price for many years to come.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's just so sad. It didn't need to happen. If people had just listened to you early 2021, we wouldn't be in this giant mess right now. I think a lot of people would still be alive. Dr. McCullough, before we let you go, tell us a little bit about the McCullough Foundation and also a little bit about the Wellness Company.
Well, McCullough Foundation offices are here in our Richardson, Texas office. So we have a sublease. We're in the wellness care area. So the McCullough Foundation is not for profit. It exists on the donations of the public, which has supported us well. McCulloughFND.org. Myself, John Leake, Nicholas Holscher, the McCullough Scholars. We've had a huge impact in our work. I'll be testifying in the Canadian Parliament now next month. We've testified certainly in the U.S. Senate, the House of Representatives, European Parliament. We've had a huge, I think, impact in bringing the world the truth on what's going on. Now, the Wellness Company is bringing solutions. Now, that's a for-profit, privately held company twc.health with your promo code. We have nutraceuticals and supplements, including the leading ones to handle problems after the vaccine and post-COVID-19. Telemedicine, we have doctors on call 24/7, licensed in all 50 states. Now we have Medicare care management. We have the entire Medicare care management contract for the country right here, orchestrated out of Richardson, Texas, Health and Wellness Materials. Everybody ought to take a look at the Wellness Company. Get a newsletter. We have novel products. We've had this breakthrough study on ivermectin and benazole, where vast majority of patients, 84% of patients, reported some degree of benefit. They benefited from taking this generic combination, micronized version, on top of conventional cancer care in either holding cancer the same or having it regress. So Wellness Company is breakthrough on so many levels.
Yeah, you guys are doing great work. Dr. McCullough, thank you for all that you're doing. Thank you for joining us today. I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, folks, go check out the Wellness Company. If you go to twc.health/Newman and use the promo code Newman when you shop there, you can get your ivermectin or whatever you need. That's where I go for a lot of stuff. You'll get a nice discount as well. So stay with us. We're going to be right back here on the Sentinel Report with more. Hey guys, Alex Newman here. I want to tell you about a wonderful ministry that is doing incredibly important work. That's Public School Exit. I am very blessed to serve as the volunteer executive director. We've got an incredible team, and our mission is simple. Try to get as many children into the safe sanctuary of Christian education as humanly possible, as quickly as possible. Government schools are no place for children. Children need to learn about God. They need to learn the Word of God. They need real education. They need to learn how to read, write, and do math. And we all know that's not what's happening in the government schools. In fact, what's happening is they're turning our children into revolutionaries, little radicals ready to burn down our churches and our civilization, not to mention our families. So go check it out today, publicschoolexit.com. We've got all kinds of resources for parents, for pastors, for taxpayers, for everybody down the line. And folks, this is one of the most critical battles. So go check out our partners at publicschoolexit.com, publicschoolexit.com. Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, we have been talking for years about the election fraud. It's massive. It's systemic. We've got major problems. And just when you think there's some good news, we'll talk about it. Intelligence reports being declassified, CIA information being declassified about the intelligence capabilities of the dictator of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez, in terms of manipulating elections. It turns out it's just a limited hangout. That's according to our next guest, Patrick Byrne, enemy within docuseries.com. He is the former CEO of Overstock.com, been involved in intelligence for a long time, and very well known, I think, to our audience. Patrick, welcome to the program. Great to have you back. Thanks for coming on.
Alex, thanks for having me.
It's great to have you. So, Patrick, as you know, just last month in July, the Trump administration released some very important, at least seemingly, intelligence about the role of Venezuela in election manipulation, Smartmatic. I mean, these are things that you and I have been talking about for years, but now we've got smoking gun evidence that the government has known about it for some time. But you say this is just the tip of the iceberg. There's actually a lot more to the story. Walk us through it.
Yes, this is there's a great battle going on in DC between the deep state and the forces of good. They know this much and they've released this much to the public. I'm happy they've released this much. The truth is, you may have heard of my colleague Gary Bernson and Martine Rodil have been doing interviews. The three of us spent the years 2022 to 2025, mostly outside the country, penetrating Venezuela, doing an old-fashioned human intelligence operation, getting over a dozen Venezuelans to defect, who were part of creating this system. The truth, so let me give you the truth, and then we'll talk about what the administration is releasing. Okay?
Let's do it.
The truth is, a mafia, as everyone understands now, a communist mafia took control of Venezuela 25 years ago. They seized the world's biggest oil supply, 500 billion barrels. For comparison, the next biggest is Saudi Arabia with 300 billion. And they've just been looting Venezuela, trillions of dollars. If you're going to do that, the other thing you need to seize is the election system. They seized the election commission, and they developed a computerized election system that they could cheat, so they could never be thrown out of power. That got spread to the world. they spun off a commercial front called Smartmatic, and then Smartmatic came into the US, and its technology is really the operating system of the different systems that are available in the market in the US and overseas. We got all these people to defect and were chased around Latin America and the Caribbean. Finally, we were in Europe in safe houses. I'll give you the most dramatic moment of my life. General Flynn came over to meet them in August of first, and we hacked the Venezuelan election of July 28th, 2024. The one that, remember, was this international outcry because we hacked their ability to cheat. We broke the system that they used to cheat, which is why they just shut down their reporting and came out. Well, General Flynn, after that, he came over to meet them and he interviewed them. And at the end of 90 minutes, and he was a very technical general, and he was satisfied. They had government IDs, they had all the proof. We had a war room set up where they could demonstrate they can make these machines spit out any answer they want and defeat audit. We were about to leave, and General Flynn's, I told the lead engineer, tell the general how much this has been going on. And the fellow gulped. He said, General Flynn, we've been manipulating elections for 20 years in 72 nations. So that's why the West is crashing into a wall, because in Xi'an, China, this is a joint venture of Cuba, Venezuela, but the shareholders are Iran and China, and Chinese military intelligence really controls this out of Xi'an. They've made the choices for 20 years, and they are what has destroyed the West and gotten us to just crash into a wall. Well, the government knows all this. As soon as Trump, we also had we got the information as to what had to be broken so they could not cheat our election in November 2024. And believe it or not, U.S. Cyber Command stepped up and defeated the hack. So that's this big secret, but I'm not keeping their secrets on this stuff anymore. That's what really happened. Belgrade, Serbia got smoked. The Dominion data center was shut down by a cyber hack. So they know all this. As soon as we got through the election and Trump got in, these people were brought into the U.S. They debriefed 2025 through the spring and summer. They debriefed 29 different Venezuelan defectors about the election systems, about the thieving, about the cartel operation. It's when they finished, Tulsi was in charge of this, but there were like 14 different agencies involved. When they were finished, the report was written. It was submitted to Trump just before Labor Day. And about 2 weeks later, there was a United States Navy flotilla on its way to Caracas. That's what's behind this whole thing going on in Venezuela. They became aware of this when the Cuba and Venezuela had done just what I told you they've done. That's what really happened. There's now getting back to your point, there's a huge fight going on where the deep state and the CIA doesn't want this to come out. They don't want it to come out that they knew about this since 2004, that they himself, Barack Obama and John Brennan set up an NGO in Alexandria called CEPS, C-E-P-P-S, staffed by George Soros, funded by $5.9 billion of USAID money, which we now know is CIA. And we, the US, spread it to 32 nations. China flipped another 40. And our Obama, CIA, Brennan, and that section of the CIA, they flipped 32 countries hard left as well using this technology. They don't want any, and they were involved in 2020. They don't want any of that to come out. So they've released this very tepid report on July 16th. And even that had a whole bunch of catfighting about it, but where they've come out and acknowledged, yes, we did know since 2004 Venezuela was trying to develop technology to rig their own elections, to rig elections. We think that they tried to do it in their own elections. We don't know if they were successful. We do know that our systems are vulnerable, but beyond that, it doesn't say anything. Okay, so they're giving like a little tiny drop of what they know. They know what I just told you at the opening, and they're trying to really soft break it to the public.
Wow, that's amazing, Patrick. And of course, as somebody who grew up in Latin America and has been following this story of the communist takeover of the region for 20 years now, this is extremely interesting. Of course, Chavez and now Maduro and now his successors part of the International Foro de Sao Paulo, the Sao Paulo Forum Network, which has as its publicly stated goal retaking in Latin America what they lost in Eastern Europe, namely communist slavery, with, of course, the United States and Canada being the big prize. Patrick, we're coming up on a big election now. We've only got a couple minutes left in this segment, but I want to get you back to break it down in more depth. Are we positioned to have a fair and honest election in this midterm? And if not, what do we need to do to make sure we get that?
No, we are not. It's better. It's better because citizen activists have been much more involved, and Trump is tightening the screws. We need the voter rolls cleaned up. We need to eliminate mail-in ballots. And what we really need are the machines. We cannot have a secure election with any of these machines. We need to return to an old-fashioned election that meets the international standards for elections that are very simple on a national holiday with no mail-in voting, voter ID. You count, importantly, you count where the votes are cast. You don't truck the votes. You don't mail the ballots. You don't truck them anywhere you can. We could do that. There's a guy named Tim Meisberger that I think you know that has done this in 55 countries from the State Department. That's what we need. And I'm hoping for an executive order or a national security order from the president, which accomplishes at least some or all of that. And that's Excellent. What we need the president to do.
Yeah. Patrick, like I said, I want to get you back for a longer discussion on these issues. But in the meantime, where are you putting up updates? Can people follow you on social media?
I'm on Twitter as Patrick Byrne. Just follow me on X as Patrick Byrne.
Excellent. Hey, Patrick Byrne, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for that update, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you, Alex. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, folks, stay with us. We got one more segment here on the Sentinel Report. We will be right back with more after this quick break.
In the grand tapestry of nature, a delicate balance weaves life's intricate threads. Today, this balance is faltering more and more as bee populations face unprecedented challenges. Without a collective effort to rescue our bees and enhance biodiversity, we're headed for devastation on a global scale. But amidst the chaos, a solution has emerged. A rallying cry echoes, a call to protect these guardians of our food chain. Introducing 4R Bees, a technology-driven organization that is saving bees globally and organically every day. At 4R Bees, we understand the critical role that bees play in maintaining the balance of our ecosystem. Saving the bees is synonymous with saving our planet, and 4R Bees is at the forefront of this mission. Visit 4rbees.com to learn more about how you can save the bees and redefine the course of our future.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, we have been having a kind of a new battle in America about free speech in recent years. You probably noticed the cancel culture and the government telling you can't do conversion therapy. How dare you tell a child that he maybe doesn't need to have surgery to become a new gender, as if that were even possible. Yeah, it's craziness. But it turns out, according to our guest in this final segment, that there are actually real benefits to your mind, to your psychology, to being able to speak freely. Our guest today is Dr. Chloe Carmichael. She's the author of a new book called Can I Say That? She is a clinical psychologist, USA Today best-selling author of Nervous Energy, Harness the Power of Your Anxiety. She's a regular guest on CNN and Fox and all kinds of other places, and she speaks all over on these issues. Dr. Chloe Carmichael, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's good to be with you.
It's an honor and a pleasure. So, Chloe, we've got the midterms coming up, and there's a real fear that people have about expressing themselves openly. And not all people, but a lot of people. Well, if I support this candidate, am I going to be perceived as a fascist? Talk to us about this new environment that we find ourselves in with cancel culture and the kind of the attack on free speech. And what does that mean for us as people?
Yeah. So as a clinical psychologist, I was joking with you that I was embarrassed to tell people that these days because psychology has brought so much nonsense, including some of that trans stuff that you mentioned earlier. But it's actually free speech is so important from a psychology perspective because language and talking our way through things can be one of our best tools cognitively. So even as you mentioned with like the trans nonsense, there were so many people, I'm embarrassed to say myself included for a while, that were afraid to get on the air, tell our neighbors, whatever, to just say that is total hogwash. Of course, a man cannot become a woman. And when people are afraid to speak the truth, it can actually interfere with our cognitive process. It can also interfere with our emotional regulation. It can harm our social relationships when we're not being real with each other. I think it can also make us vulnerable to anxiety and depression, since talking our way through problems is actually one of our primary problem-solving tools.
Yeah. I noticed that during COVID, it was like they didn't want us talking to other people. We're supposed to stay locked in our house, glued to the TV, listening to Dr. Fauci, believing that, me and my wife are the only people in the whole world who have any questions about this like mass hysteria that we've gone into. It's like, no, I'm going to talk to other people and talking to other people like, wait, oh, you realize it's phony too? Huh. Interesting. I want to talk a little bit about social media, Dr. Chloe. I mean, the algorithms now have really kind of shaped public discourse, I think, in a very important way. How does that intersect with your research on free speech?
Well, that's huge. And, as you said, in COVID, a lot of people, were very isolated. In fact, in part because the government at the time was directly influencing social media companies to thwart and dethrottle and shadow ban people who were saying that a man can't become a woman, right? For example. And so then your average person would get online and think, well, I guess I'm the only person who thinks this. And then our, just kind of natural, social norms cues tell us, well, gee, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm the weird one or something like that. And so it's like the emperor's new clothes. Somebody just has to be the first to say it and break the spell. But if the government is interfering with social media as they were, then they can really start to tamper with our sense of social consensus as a society.
Yeah, and I mean the consequences, as we all saw, were absolutely devastating. Explosion of drug use and alcoholism and suicide and depression, and it was just a miserable time for those, at least, who were paying attention to their TVs and Dr. Fauci. A lot of us just opted out entirely. Dr. Carmichael, what are the implications of all this? Like, what should we be doing differently as a society now that we know some of the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, well, isolation and being silenced is actually one of the first things that an abuser will do to their victim, right? Is they want to keep you quiet and isolated. So, and I've had to learn this myself. I moved to the free state of Florida during COVID, escaping New York City. And it wasn't until I got here that I started realizing how much self-censoring I was doing. So to answer your question, what can we do about it? My book, that thank you for putting on screen, is actually full of techniques of how to speak up. And I know some of your audience members are probably already really good at that, which is great. But especially if you know someone else in your life who maybe struggles with that the way that I did for a little while, there's ways to do it. So if you're in the soccer mom group and you're afraid you're going to be the only one, maybe tell a mom or two in advance, hey, I'm going to speak up that I don't want boys on our team. Would you be willing to back me up, right? Or, making a little bit of a plan in advance, or, there's a lot of ways you can do it depending on the situation. But one way or the other, just to understand that speaking up is really important to your mental health. It helps you to think more clearly. It helps you to emotionally regulate, and it helps you to build stronger relationships. So a lot of people don't do it because they think, well, I don't want to stick my neck out there. It'll be safer to just keep quiet. But I want people to know it actually can endanger you if you don't speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad to hear all that. I'm the kind of guy, I'm like, oh, I'm in an Uber. Let's see what the Uber driver thinks. I've never shy about expressing my opinion, but I know a lot of people are, folks. And I think it's time that we really start making our thoughts known. I think the more people talk to each other, the more quickly we'll realize that some of what is being foisted on us as a society is simply ludicrous, with the transgenderism and the COVID crazy, just exhibit A and B. We're just about out of time, Chloe, but I do want to ask you, you've got another book that you wrote before on nervous energy, harness the power of your anxiety. In just a minute or so, how do we harness the power of our anxiety? What does that mean?
Yeah, so the healthy function of anxiety is to stimulate preparation behaviors. So Nervous Energy Book is where the one book is located, and freespeechtoday.com is where the other one is located. But there's actually overlap between the two because, again, the healthy function of anxiety is to stimulate preparation behaviors, which often includes talking things through, activating your support network, things like that. Definitely doesn't mean just being quiet. But the book is full of, 9 different techniques of how to use your anxiety, if you have test anxiety, for example, to channel that into making flashcards, doing drills, all kinds of other things that we can do to be productive. And if we have anxiety about what's happening in society or politically, we need to do something about it. And oftentimes speaking up is a really good first step.
That's fantastic. And Chloe, your book is endorsed by Dr. Drew and Patrick Bet-David and all kinds of great people. Hey, I really appreciate you speaking out about this. Really appreciate you coming on the program. Thank you. And I hope we can get you back again soon.
Thanks. I would love that. Have a good rest of your day.
Hey, you as well. Great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. All right, folks, that is all we have time for today on the Sentinel Report. But I do want to thank you for tuning in. I also want to encourage you to get over to our website, libertysentinel.org. You can sign up for our newsletter there, absolutely free. And if you feel so inclined, if you want to help us get this on even more radio stations across the country, we're doing a big campaign right now. You can already hear us on AM, FM from coast to coast, but we want to get more and more radio stations, get this information to more and more people. Get over to libertysentinel.org/donate. You can make a tax-deductible donation and help us bring this to the airwaves all across the country and beyond. That's Liberty Sentinel, sentinel.org/donate. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Alex Newman. This is the Sentinel Report. We appreciate you so much. And until next time, thank you. God bless you all.